This is the major city of Kurgan in southern Russia, and 1,500 kilometers to its west is the city of Pienza. Right now, in these two locations, Chinese troops could be training for airborne assaults on Taiwan and the South China Sea, according to UK think tank RUSI, as part of a deal uncovered by hacktivist group Black Moon. A Taiwan official told the Washington Post military cooperation between China and Russia goes far beyond what has been publicly acknowledged, and confirmed that Taiwan has tracked Russian provision of an advanced paratrooper command system to China, and Taiwan's military is prepared to respond effectively. Also, the Wall Street Journal reports that Xi Jinping will press for his top goal and push Donald Trump to formally state that the US opposes Taiwan's independence, according to, quote, people familiar with the matter. What would such a move mean? And what impact do both these stories have on Taiwan's security? Hello and welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Ian Kavat. To discuss these stories and more, we are joined by Raymond Song, Prospect Foundation Vice President, and Guimont Lerari, Institute for National Defense and Security Research, visiting scholar. Guimont and Raymond, welcome back today. In July this year, activist and cyber research group Black Moon uncovered 800 pages of contractual documents, quote, for the development of an automation system for air landing command or an air battalion and command control system for China's military worth $34 million US. This is the actual contract signed between Russia's Rosoboron Export and China's CETC, a state-backed import-export company, dated April 2021. In the past few days, UK think tank RUSI released their report on the leak, saying, quote, Russia agreed in 2023 to supply the PLA with a complete set of weapons and equipment to equip an airborne battalion, as well as other special equipment necessary for airborne infiltration of special forces, along with a full cycle of training for operators and technical personnel to use this equipment. Included are 37 BMD-4M light amphibious assault vehicles, 11 Sprut SDM-1 light amphibious anti-tank self-propelled guns, 11 BTR MDM Rakushka airborne armoured personnel carriers, and several commander and observation vehicles, which are part of a high-tech mobile command centre. So, Raymond, let me start with you first. So the RUSI authors say Moscow's assistance could help to speed up China's airborne program by about 10 to 15 years. So does this mean that a potential Chinese invasion of Taiwan could be brought forward?
Actually, it is also noteworthy to know that the airborne attack is just part of the Chinese tactics that will be really launched. It has to be accompanied by other means of attack, for example, joint firepower attacks like missile attacks to destroy Taiwan's capabilities for air defense, and also for seaborne landing trials attempts. What Chinese wants from Russia is that about this practical experience and about the actual planning for the tactics for those troops, including, for example, high altitude special troops parachuting. Those are what Chinese seeking from the Russia for experience, for training, and for equipment.
I did want to get to the point, though. What is the difference between what troops that are dropped behind the, Taiwan's defense, hardened defense lines, what can they achieve that is different to what troops coming,
Ashore.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So I think the best example would be Normandy, the battle for Normandy during World War II. Where the airborne troops and air assault troops came behind enemy lines, and they were basically disrupting the troops that were there, and also preventing reinforcements from coming to the coast where the main landing was going to be. So they can do a lot of damage in terms of preventing the forces that are there to get reinforcements, and also to attack them from the other angles. So usually your forces are looking out, they're not looking behind. And so this would be what we call a pincer movement, where the landing forces and the airborne forces would crush them. That would be the intent.
Okay, so how does that complicate Taiwan's defenses? Well, Taiwan's Hangguang military exercise this year practiced shooting down a Chinese airborne attack on Taoyuan International Airport. That's just 40 kilometers from Taiwan's seat of government in Taipei. But we're now showing golf courses on screen close to the port of Taipei and Taoyuan International Airport because RUSI suggests China could infiltrate Taiwan by airdropping armored vehicles onto golf courses near ports and airports to allow air troops to clear a path for landing forces. So, Raymond, how does that complicate Taiwan's defenses then?
Yeah, I think it's been very clear that the special forces, paratroopers, are carrying out special forces, special operations like seizing the control of the port or the airfield. And those has to be done in a quick way, in a surprise attack way. And also another branch is to have some political warfare like the decapitalization or assassination attempt, trying to paralyze Taiwan's command and control political center. And so the case in point and what you mentioned about seizing the Taipei port is that they need to reach a balance. They need to have a larger field, like a golf course, so that they could parachuting a sufficient number of troops and also the vehicles. And they need to have mobilities after the surprise getting a foothold on the territory, so they can move fast and with sufficient attacking force. So that's why they seize this. And because these strategic ports or airfield are heavily guarded already, so they need to have some seeking for other locations which might not on the radar for the Taiwan defense.
Right, right. And so that element of surprise, Guillemot, that Raymond mentioned, let's look to the Russia-Ukraine war. Russia at the Battle for Hostomel, in the first few days in 2022, they failed to establish an air bridge at Hostomel Airport. That's just 19 kilometers from Kyiv, very close. This was meant to be the decapitation attack. Raymond, you mentioned that, leading to regime change within just a few days. Why did they fail?
They failed for several reasons. Anytime you do an airborne assault or an airborne raid on an airport, you're in an airplane. And so radar will be able to detect your movement. And also satellites can detect your movement. You're emanating lots of different kinds of radio signals. And so that's one thing. The second, the real reason why they failed was because the Ukrainian government actually knew that they were going to attack and prepared to destroy the forces when they landed.
Right.
And so they did. And that's the way that Taiwan should take it upon itself. And just by the by, the Germans during World War II tried to take Crete, and they had massive losses. And because of that, Hitler never used airborne troops ever again during World War II because of what the civilians and the military did to them on Crete.
Right, so very high risk, even though there are benefits that we talked about. Raymond, in terms of the strategies for Taiwan, I mean, you spoke about the sort of political warfare, the disinformation as well. If they are going to very seriously use this, does Taiwan need to embrace and fully integrate that civilian defense? I mean, we're talking about golf courses here. So, we have, the military has hardened the defenses on the coast.
Yes.
How about inside Taiwan? Does this require, cooperation of the golf courses to do those things that we've done to like I say, coastal defenses? So crater them, establish roadblocks.
I think that's a part of the reason why the Taiwanese government is trying to push forward the all society's resilience exercises, trying to train the normal citizens how to spot the enemy forces and how to, what's the channel to report and what's to answer for the trying to get help or trying to get the RUSI military to engage, to destroy the enemies. So I think that's part of the reason, and also for involving the private actors might be a new idea because the golf courses has never been imagined to be a primary target or for the landing of the PLA troops. So that might increase the level of alert for Taiwanese military planning.
And Guillemot, China is an arms manufacturing powerhouse now. So what is it that Russia can offer that Beijing doesn't already have, or is it mostly that training, that experience, that that Russia has in not just Ukraine, but also there was a 1999 Pristina airport seizure. There was also the seizure of Simferopol airport during the Crimean attack in 2014.
For all the bluster that PLA does and all the parades they show, all their toys, they still aren't ready, whether they like it or not. That's a fact. So one of the things is, besides the airborne part, is the anti-submarine warfare. The US and Japan and other countries in the region have very good submarines, and the Chinese are having difficulty tracking them. And that's one area where if they want to do a seaborne attack on Taiwan, the US, Japan, and hopefully with the new submarine that Taiwan has, will cause havoc to any kind of seaborne attack. And so there are lots of different things that are missing. Now, on the other hand, there are things that they are very good at and they're already ready to do. For example, cyber. They're ready to do cyber attacks. They're ready to do missile attacks. They probably have dominance in space. So there's some areas that they're ready, some areas they're working to, and some areas they have none.
So how about air superiority, which is essential for this to be successful?
So here's the challenge. If you just look at the aircraft, fighter aircraft or bombers that China has, Taiwan, and by the way, they can't just bring all their bombers and fighters against Taiwan. They need to maintain a lot of them around their country, which is pretty big. So Taiwan probably has enough air-to-air, ground-to-air, ship-to-air capabilities to put a major dent on any kind of air assault type operation. So this operation would probably not be done in the beginning of a conflict because they would just get completely obliterated. Now, if they did it in conjunction with using, for example, drones, flying ahead of them, and those would be taken out first, then Taiwan's ability to take out airplanes or helicopters would be diminished. So it really depends on the situation, but Taiwan, I believe, is ready for that problem unless the Chinese have something up their sleeve which the Taiwanese didn't prepare for.
Okay. Now, one of the biggest conclusions of the RUSI report is that this airborne assault by Chinese special forces is not just limited to Taiwan. Look, it says an attempt to seize Taiwan would likely see fighting erupt throughout the South China Sea, creating a requirement for the PLA to project combat power further afield. In the initial phases of war, air maneuver could allow the PLA to move airborne forces with organic firepower and mobility to critical terrain beyond Taiwan, securing airfields or other infrastructure that could otherwise support US operations to counter the PLA amphibious landings on Taiwan. Raymond, how horrifying is this for the other countries in this region?
I think that's part of the Chinese so-called area denial or anti-access maneuvers, trying to deter U.S. deployment of the troops to come to Taiwan's assistance, which will be launched, for example, in the air bases or port from Japan, from Okinawa, or from the Philippines.
But the idea of Chinese troops, parachuting onto the Philippines, Japan, South Korea?
I think that will be part of the Chinese possible tactics. And another part trying to deter, for example, the threat of using a long-term, long-range precision striking capabilities against, for example, U.S. carriers or U.S. Other ships, trying to keep the U.S. forces out of their theater, trying to isolate Taiwan. And that will possibly involve military bases in the locations around Taiwan. And those need to be shielded from the Chinese missile attack. So the taking a hold, that's we need overall planning for the coordinating all those capabilities.
And Gamon, we talked about how this changes or might change how Taiwan defends itself. Looking at it from the perspective of, say, the Philippines and the other countries, perhaps in the first island chain, possibly even in the second island chain, perhaps they thought that there would be missiles from China attacking their bases. But now what we're talking about is possibly Chinese troops, Chinese assault and special forces troops landing in their country.
Right. So that is another capability that they're developing. So it's not ready yet. They do have airborne forces, but they're not in a mass configuration. And don't forget, there are also activities in these countries by United Front or the security services of China or the embassy. So there's lots of things going on also secret in those countries, causing problems, espionage, trying to find out secrets. And then if there was a war, those people could be activated for sabotage. So just like the special forces that Raymond mentioned could cause havoc, there are other forces in play here. And so I think it's just another capability they're working on, no different than the missile threat or the airborne threat from bombers. These are all different capabilities, and they're creating what they call courses of action to force the countries to invest in defending themselves in more areas, which means they have to spend more money, and so they won't know how China will attack. And that's a technique that's being used against Taiwan.
And Raymond, in a sense, we can see, I mean, RUSI highlighting this in their report. It's showing how China is helping actually to internationalize a war over Taiwan.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so China is not just a problem for Taiwan.
Exactly. I think it's coming to more and more coming to the realization for example, Japan, the Philippines, and also Korea, and that the Taiwan condition will never be just between China and Taiwan. It will be an international affairs because, for example, the geographical proximity and the possible involvement of U.S. troops, and also which means that the involvement of the bases for the U.S. around this region. So by nature, it will be an international affair. And so that I think the Japan has the creativity to propose this so-called one theater concept, meaning that no matter what happened with respect to East China Sea, Taiwan, or South China Sea, that will be involving all parties around this area. That's the idea.
Okay, now let's quickly go to the Wall Street Journal report based on Xi Jinping's belief in Donald Trump's eagerness to clinch a trade deal, according to people familiar with the matter. Now, Xi reportedly thinks Beijing has an opportunity to press Washington to formally state its opposition to Taiwan's independence. Xi also pressed former US President Joe Biden, but he only agreed to state that Washington does not support Taiwan independence rather than opposing it. The US's actual position is that it takes no position on Taiwan's status, but opposes any unilateral changes to the status quo and expects a peaceful resolution of cross-strait issues. Firstly, what is the difference between the US saying it opposes versus it does not support Taiwan independence?
Does not support is more passive. It won't actively stop Taiwan from declaring independence. In Biden's national security strategy, he says we oppose, like you said, we oppose any unilateral change to the status quo from either side, and he also says, and does not support Taiwan independence. So that is the first time that the U.S. said something different than it had in the past under the Biden national security strategy. I think a lot of this stir and churn that's happening right now is trying to create the opinion in people's mind that Trump is going to betray Taiwan, and that's a false statement.
So you don't. Okay, so you don't believe he has any appetite to agree with Xi to say that the U.S. opposes Taiwan independence?
No, if you take a look at what he did during his first administration, first of all, he was the one who agreed with Congress to sign a new law encouraging senior lawmakers to come to Taiwan.
But things have changed a little in the second term, Guillemot.
Of course, they've changed. But he's also the one who sold $20 billion worth of weapon systems that no other president prior to him did. For example, he approved the submarine deal for Taiwan. No president prior to him had ever approved that. Sure. F-16Vs, M1A1 Abrams, those are all things that were off the list, and now they were approved. Okay. So I don't think Trump is the guy that is the bad guy in this story. I think he's playing it very quiet, and everyone's trying to guess what he's going to do.
Yeah, in fact, in February 2025, Trump's State Department removed the line, "We do not support Taiwan independence," from its fact sheet on Taiwan.
Which was created by the Biden White House. They tried to take it down. China complained, they put it back on, they left it on, then Trump took it off and left it off.
Gemon, in his answer, he said, declaration of independence. But for Taiwan, should Trump or any US president say that it opposes Taiwan independence, is that just the declaration of independence? Is the worry that it could be something much, much broader?
It's worth noting that all this, the particular statement does not support or opposes, actually rests on the consistent policy of the United States toward Taiwan, which was guided by the Taiwan Relations Act and the Sixth Assurance and all that. And for that, it's very clear that the U.S. opposes unilateral change of the status quo, including on Taiwanese part. We are not going to declare independence, but for the recent governments for Taiwan, that's a moot question. We have no need to declare any independence.
But Raymond, do you think that we need to sort of define what independence means? Because Taiwan doesn't want him to say oppose or not support. And like you said, our President Lai Ching says that we are already independent, so we don't need to declare it. So is independence actually what we know Taiwan is, which is having a directly elected president, having a military, having an own currency, having border control? And if the US was to say that they oppose this, what are the risks?
The first risk that the Chinese media will make a fuss about is a part of psychological war, trying to say that the U.S. is abandoning Taiwan, the U.S. is going back from their commitment to the Taiwan security. Those will be a part of the political maneuver. But for that, I think the current Taiwan population has been strengthened our psychological defense enough, trying to receive that we know that at the end of the Taiwan security is our own hands. We are not relying on the U.S. assistance, although those will be crucially important if we are going to a protracted warfare. But at the first, we have the primary responsibility for defending ourselves.
Gemon, we've mentioned the U.S.'s Taiwan Relations Act. Now, peace is the foundation of that for Washington to recognize Beijing. So if, say, the scenario that Trump were to consider doing this for Xi, or even just to repeat, we do not support Taiwan independence, do you think that he should also state, and the U.S. is opposed to or does not support China taking Taiwan by force?
Well, let's just quote the Taiwan Relations Act. There are three short phrases that make it clear. It is the policy of the United States, in Part 2, it says, to make clear that the United States' decision to establish diplomatic relations with the PRC rests upon the expectation that the future of Taiwan will be determined by peaceful means. In other words, what we've been talking about before is all this war, all this air assault stuff. If China does that, we will not recognize the PRC. And the second thing is to consider any effort to determine the future of Taiwan by other than peaceful means, including boycotts, embargoes, threat of peace and security of the Western Pacific, is of grave concern. Now, it's not sharp in the sense that it should say is of vital interest, but it's close enough. And the final thing is to maintain the capacity of the United States to resist any resort to force or any forms of coercion that would jeopardize the security or social or economic system of the people on Taiwan, which means the U.S. has a responsibility to defend Taiwan, according to this. And it's a law. And so your hypothetical question would mean that if he broke any of these lines that I just read, they would have to change the law. And so he would be fighting Congress in that respect. So I don't think he's going to go there. And I have confidence that, this is a long play, a long game that Trump is playing with China, and China is also trying to manipulate him. So it's a game, but I don't believe he's going to go that far.
Well, Raymond, if you can just address the point that it's very one-sided. Obviously, Xi Jinping is on the side of China and not on the side of Taiwan. But in this kind of debate, raising this issue, we should always remind China and also the US there is the opposite side, which is as Gemont has just talked about, the peaceful resolution. So therefore, the US must not support China taking Taiwan by force, which it repeatedly says it will do, and it will never rule out.
No. I think that's the crucial part is for the U.S. trying to guarding its own interest. That's a problem. I think the U.S. interest for this region, for the Taiwan Strait, is still very much in line with what happened. 1979 Taiwan Relations Act. Taiwan is too important to be given away, not only just by a summit between the two leaders, for the United States as a whole. And that's for now. But the U.S. interest calculation is also changing. That causes concern. For example, the uncertainty about the U.S. attitude toward external warfares, like warfare outside U.S. mainland, and also about the sacrificing U.S. lives for the particular conflict, and also for the security of, for example, the crucially important high-end semiconductor capabilities, like what we see recently about the U.S. wishes to having a larger share of Taiwan's capability in the U.S. mainland. Those will cause other concerns about the U.S. commitment to Taiwan security, and those are changing. And the Trump administration are part of the change. So I think compared to a single statement from the summit, I think those aspects will be causing more deep-rooted shadows in Taiwan psychology.
We're going to have to wrap it up there. Thank you so much, Raymond Song and Gemont Lalaurie, for joining Taiwan Talks today. If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching the show today. Stay safe and see you next time.